here, now that you said it.
The UK is fearing a second wave of coronavirus infections. Second wave? So what's that like to have the first one actually end? In order to prevent that second wave, Prime Minister Boris Yeltsin is proposing that pubs close at 10 p.m. Because apparently in Europe, viruses have a curfew, and we know the last thing that COVID wants is to be grounded for staying out too late.
Ellen DeGeneres kicked off the new season of her show with a virtual audience and a monologue addressing the toxic work environment. She apologized to anyone who felt mistreated for being a lowly, no-good, useless vermin.
Manhattan's district attorney says he has grounds to investigate Donald Trump for tax fraud and argues the president's returns should be released because, quote, mountainous allegations of misconduct. Experts are predicting that this will mean absolutely nothing, and literally every person who is going to vote for the president will still vote for him, and some of them will probably vote twice.
A suspect has been detained for sending a poison-tainted envelope to the White House, which is dumb since Trump doesn't open his own mail. That's as effective as hiding poison in a salad.
Also the worst way to try and kill me. And finally, a new poll shows Joe Biden leading President Trump by 12 points among Catholics. Wow. Catholics really do make themselves suffer for their faith. And the Trump Report starts now. Very excited because obviously it's always a treat to have Tamra Brown and Scott Moore with us, but making her triumphant return with the lens cap still on, Chelsea Galicia. Chelsea, thank you for being with us.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I figured this way it would be better so you didn't see me crying about, so, but I'm glad to be with you.
Wait, what happened? I was really caught up in Emmy fever. So I didn't really see any other news. I just realized that I guess I should check out Schitt's Creek after 6 years of not watching it. So is there anything else? So obviously I don't know what else we're going to get to talk about today, but there's, I guess the first round of this conversation will be what each of us thought maybe when we heard the news. And Chelsea, as our resident legal expert, your thoughts on Ruth Bader Ginsburg just in general, but then also when you heard that she had passed away.
Thanks for the opportunity to put my thoughts, my words together on this. We'll see if I can. It's like a weird thing when you go to law school and you read opinions, and people often think that they're very, dry and long and boring, but some of them have really, they light you up. They're like, yes, this is what I was thinking, this is what I was feeling. And this person got to essentially put it in stone that that makes a difference across an entire country. Yes. And it's so well said, and it's so well reasoned, and it makes so much sense. It's yes, absolutely. And you can actually be excited by what a lot of people would think of as really, poke your eyeballs out with a toothpick, boring kind of content. But when you get to read stuff like that and see the massive shift that it causes in a country, you feel like you have a relationship with the person who wrote it. And so it's almost like, crying about a celebrity that you felt like you knew. I cried so hard when Michael Jackson died, but more people knew him, or just knew of him. But Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I felt like, obviously I've never met her, but just to see the opinion and to hear her is just, there's some kind of it's a weird soul connection. I don't know if you've ever had a soul connection with somebody you've never met and really whose words you've really just only read largely, but so it's just really massive. And so she just seemed like made out of steel, this teeny tiny little woman, and it was she was the sort of the adult in the room, where you felt like, as crazy as stuff is getting, at least she's there. I don't know. It was just like this, it's comforting notion. So to find out that she had passed, I just, it was one of those things where it's like you expect it, but you're not expecting it because she had survived so much. So when I just saw it on my phone, the words, dead at 87, I was just in shock and numb for a good 5 minutes, and then the tears come down, and then thinking beyond that about the consequences and the hypocrisy that is about to be unleashed, because I know Mitch McConnell is going to go back on his word about not nominating a Supreme Court member in an election year. And I just, knew that was going to piss me off. And I was just this, it's a very emotional experience. I'll say that. So, heartbroken and devastated and frankly frightened for the direction of the country is where I am. So it's better to be with the lens cap on, because a lot of the times you'll see me like, oh my God, just kind of despair.
Right, because I don't know if it's compelling viewing for people to see you doing the show from the fetal position on the floor, but we do appreciate you doing it all the same. Tamra, I wanted to kind of give you the same opportunity, just general thoughts and your specific thoughts when you heard the news.
Well, I'm out of town right now, and I am actually staying in a house full of Republicans. And
Dear God.
Tamara, I'm going to interrupt you. Blink 3 times if you need an instruction team to come and get you. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get on the phone with some people, but you continue talking, and we know everything's okay. Tamara's fine.
They're very amazing, lovely women, actually. But I was in the kitchen. We were all in the kitchen together. Somebody happened to notice it first, and they said that, and I go, no. And then somebody like hugged me and was like, oh, we have a difference of opinions. And I went into the bathroom, and I just it was like the floodgates opened. I was not expecting, I knew that I would be incredibly sad at RBG's passing, but I was not expecting to ugly cry sob like I did. It was really a surprising reaction. I was very, very upset.
Did you ask these women what they disagreed with? Do they prefer not to vote? Do they prefer not to be able to have their own bank accounts or get a mortgage in their own name? What are they so against?
We don't get into these topics. They're my friend's mom and her friends. And I'm pretty sure it's just the abortion issue. They're a religious group.
Yeah, I think that single issue is why they see this as the opportunity. And I just through some of my professional dealings, I have a lot of conservative colleagues and friends and things. And I was on a text chain, and I was just like, I can't have a conversation, a real conversation. So I just made a joke, and that distracted anybody from trying to figure out how I actually felt about it, which I said, if Trump nominates Merrick Garland, I'm never going to stop laughing. So that it was, moderately amusing, and enough so that they were like, that's great. But I think that there's a difference of opinion. The timing was, of course, surprising, not because she's 87, but like you were saying, Chelsea, because you were like, oh, she's been through so much. Remember, like last year, she fell down, and, you heard about all the treatments and things. You're like, yeah, well, and then I don't know. If it had been closer to, if it had been a month from now, you'd be like, all right, well, there's no time to try and get anything done. But it raises some other concerns, which we'll get to. But I wanted to give Scott a chance. Your thoughts when you heard the news, Scott.
Well, it was actually I actually was just trying to lay down and take a quick nap because I was going to go meet a friend for socially distanced drinks later. And I was just finishing up a really long week. And then, my phone started just binging like crazy with different texts. And then a couple of people just had put Ruth, exclamation mark. Oh no, Ruth. And I thought, oh great. If they're putting, just her name on there, then I knew right away. And it was shocked because as much as like we were saying earlier, we all knew that she definitely had health issues. And so it wasn't necessarily going to be a surprise, but you always kind of also had that feeling of like, okay, like she always gets back up again and she keeps fighting and she works, and it's just not going to be that imminent. So I think none of us maybe realized how, serious it was over these past couple of weeks, because it seemed like even up to the few days before she was sending out thank you notes. And, it just, and again, it was the timing. I started thinking like, as horrible as it was to say that, it was like, why couldn't this have just happened 4 months later and be mid-January when it would have been too late for Republicans, even in a lame duck session, to do anything? And I thought, oh, here we go again, because now the whole dynamic of the election is going to be changed on everything from all the failures that Trump and this administration have now going to be completely forgotten. And now it's just going to be this insane get out the vote. And as we were saying earlier, I just kept thinking, of course, Mitch McConnell and Republicans are complete hypocrites, and they make up rules. And even now they're rules that they're going with about, oh, when it's two different parties, it's such a joke, and it's such a shame. And the biggest losers right now are us, the country, because they're making a joke and making light out of our entire democracy and trying to ram somebody through. And they don't care, because they're like, well, as long as we can change the court's direction for decades to come, even if we lose and we're in the minority now in the Senate and the presidency, that anytime that a Biden administration or anything does anything in the future, they'll just take it right to the court, and then they hope to have a super majority to be able to thwart anything that the Democrats try to do from now on. So it's a smart tactic, and we can get into this later about all that. But I knew right away, the minute all those texts started going off, and I just saw one word with Ruth, that I knew that she had passed away, and it was absolutely devastating. And I said to people too, this today, I just had not felt this way about a person, whether it be a celebrity or not. Like, I couldn't even really sleep very well on Friday night. It was just so devastating. I think someone that had been fighting for us all these years for her entire life was now gone. And then secondly, that there's a chance that she could be replaced by some horrible extreme right person, which would do the exact opposite of what she stood for. And that was a second round of just feeling devastated. So it was definitely not a good start to the weekend. And for a lot of people, talking about Rosh Hashanah and the New Year, I mean, it was horrible. So definitely not expected, even though we knew she had ill health. It just totally was
I just the idea that it had gotten this far. And talking about what she had been up to, I mean, I think I saw that she officiated a wedding 2 weeks ago, or maybe it's a little bit longer ago than, but it wasn't that long ago. So it's there's all of those sort of angles to it. And then I mean, I think that for sort of a low-rent politician, Mitch McConnell waiting 90 minutes to issue his statement was actually surprisingly respectful for Mitch McConnell. Not for other humans, but for actual humans. But for Mitch McConnell, you're like, 90 minutes. That was that was like an eternity for him.
Class act.
What were you going to say, Tamra? Point out real quick. So we were at the Grand Canyon. Now we're back in Scottsdale, Arizona. But going through the Grand Canyon, the national parks, and a couple other parks on the way, all the flags are at half mast, and I wasn't expecting that, actually.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember
Go ahead.
when Antonin Scalia died. Were conservatives? Did they cry like this, or was she a larger force from what you can tell?
Well, I don't know. I mean, didn't Antonin Scalia give Republicans the 43rd president? So, I mean, they should have at least been appreciative. But I don't think it was the same force. And, I was going to mention Scalia's passing, it was almost like, oh, come on, you can't replace that guy with a liberal justice. And then this is sort of like, well, okay, but this was, so you're basically going to bring in a conservative to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So that, I think that the idea of not upsetting the cart, and of course, we were talking about Merrick Garland, that was in March, and then this is in September, and the hearings. So there's a lot of there's a few different angles that this can take. So Scott, you're talking about all the texts that you got, and I know some of them were from me, because a lot more people have talked about this since, but my thinking was, I wanted to make sure. I'm like, well, let me check with somebody who knows better than I am, and Larry Sabato doesn't answer my texts, so I wrote to you. And so the idea of whether or not, they can get this confirmed, which we'll talk about, but were that to happen, if you work under the assumption that you would have Joe Biden as president and you would pick up seats in the Senate, which I think if this confirmation gets rushed through before the election, I think that would actually help Democrats. Yes. In terms of getting people to vote. Yeah. And I think that's a huge reason why it won't happen before then, because there's 23 Republicans that are up for re-election in November, and plenty of them are safe, but there's a good 5 or 6 of them that are not going to vote on this beforehand. They might vote to confirm, like November 15th, but they wouldn't do it before the election, so if that becomes the focus to try and get it done beforehand, I don't think that's going to work for them. But so a lot more people have kind of talked about this idea of that if you have a Democratic Congress and a Democratic president, then next year you're able to have the active Congress that will add more seats to the court, which hasn't happened in some time. There haven't been more than 9, but historically there have been at least 10. Chelsea, have there ever been more than 10?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't think so. And there's I had a recollection from high school social studies about FDR trying to pack the court, but what I didn't realize, what he was planning to do was that as soon as a justice hit 70, then you would add someone else because you can't replace them. So, that's actually something that would have worked in Republicans' favor in the last 20 years if that had been in place. So something like that is like, okay, well, then you could get that 9th seat, but then Joe Biden's going to get to name, 3 justices. Mm-hmm. And I think all of this is very dangerous, reinventing the game. And I think that I don't know if this country can survive both of those things happening. I think that it's definitely grounds for the kinds of revolt that we haven't seen, even all the unrest that we've seen. I think that adding multiple justices to the Supreme Court, whether you're within your rights to do it. So I think all of this lends itself to the kind of, just the sort of nightmare scenario that I don't think anybody was prepared for. Chelsea, when you hear all of this stuff, what are your thoughts about just how viable these options are? I don't know that there's enough time if President Trump nominates someone at the end of this week, if there's enough time to actually get the confirmation through in time for the election. And then also the idea of President Joe Biden adding a few people to the court. What do you think about both of those things?
Man, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is that we think of this election as occurring in November, but it's already occurring, right now. People are voting. And so I don't know if the election itself is going to make a huge difference, because people already know that a lot of people are already doing the voting now. So, what the hey, if we can push it through. But yes, those several senators who are like in a sensitive position, they may not want to, but the party as a whole, GOP, they will sacrifice, I think, seats if they get a Supreme Court justice, because that way, when there is a contention on November 4th, because for sure things will be confused and chaotic, we'll have either 8 justices, and that's going to be rough, or they're going to have an extra justice on their side that's going to help decide the election in favor of Trump. We'll have a Florida Bush redo of, wow, I can't even remember the year that was.
2000.
Yeah.
2000. So I think that people are prepared for a showdown about the election, and so they'll want to get in that justice in there to fill the 9th seat. When I think of what are the chances that Biden wins, and not only does Biden have to win, but Democrats would have to take the Senate. It's a big thing. I'm hoping it'll happen because, of course, I've been cheering for Senate Majority Leader Elizabeth Warren for like ever now. And they'd have to, keep the House. And then, an act of Congress would be required to increase the number of Supreme Court justices that can serve at any one time. That would take a lot. It take a lot of political will, and yeah, Christian, it would be rough. But I wonder if it's like, how I don't think President Obama planned to sort of spend all of his political will on Obamacare, but the Supreme Court is such a big deal that I could see the party maybe putting that level of effort into it at the expense of everything else, because how can we clean anything up if the Supreme Court is I'm trying to put it lightly, I guess, unhelpful. Like, how can you have any anti-corruption? And of course, that's what I want to see. I want to see anti-corruption legislation. I think that that's what the big favor that Trump has done for us. So how can we try and get anything like that passed? How can we try and do something that would overturn Citizens United? If you had a very conservative court, you just wouldn't be able to do it. So it's like we would have this opportunity to clean up corruption, restore democracy, and it just wouldn't happen. It would always, in the end of the day, anything would get tossed out. So I think there would be a good chance that if Democrats were to be able to take both houses, that we would see something like increasing the number of justices, because otherwise any other effort at any other legislation would eventually, I think, become null and void. I think I got that mixed up.
Both of those, vollenoid and null and void. But yeah, no, I knew what you meant. Scott, there seem to be a few different ways to at least slow this down. I mean, this isn't the old days where you can filibuster for 3 months, because of the cloture vote means that you have to table it after, I looked this up, I think it's 30 hours. Yeah. So there's a certain point where you can't just read the Manhattan White pages line for line and then decide that now it's time to read the yellow pages. And, at some point you're going to have to yield your time. But there are other things that can slow it down. One that Nancy Pelosi, might as well call her Nancy Pelosi, old Nancy Pelosi was not quick to shoot down the idea of doing another impeachment hearing, either on President Trump or Attorney General Bill Barr. Either of which you feel like you make the case for. There's also the fact that there's a spending bill pending, and the end result of not passing it is a government shutdown. So in general, people make the argument of, well, how much does the government really do? Let's just have them shut down. I'm fairly sure that you would not be able to find some emergency funding for a Supreme Court hearing. Now, how viable do you think that is as an option? What are some of the things you're hearing that if they really want to slow this down, and really ultimately you could probably only slow it down until the election. I don't think you could slow it all the way down to the end of the year. But what do you think about some of these things that we're hearing now, Scott?
Yeah, I think some of those things, which are theoretically they could do. I think at the end of the day, a lot of those are a little too far-fetched to actually happen, and really, that's the unfortunate thing. And I don't want to be like, oh, the Republicans, they started it first. We've talked about this multiple times on this exact podcast over the years. Excuse me, about how Harry Reid had started with removing the nuclear option for some of the judges, and now that opened the door enough that Mitch McConnell ran with it, and now got less than 60 votes to the nuclear option to just have a simple majority for Supreme Court justices, and that's how we ended up with Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, we know that Clarence Thomas barely won himself. It was like 52-48, or super close. That's the only other time it's been so close. But now, the fact that they got rid of this means that Brett Kavanaugh could get on the court, which means you don't need to have any Democratic support to be able to have whoever they have nominated now to go through and be appointed. So yes, they can slow it down. Yes, they can have a lot of tactics to do. I think they will look at everything and decide, is this going to make sense to do? Or are they going to just see that people for themselves are going to see how horrible this is, especially if they do this before the election, which I agree with you. I think, Christian, it'll be hard for them to do unless, like Chelsea said, they really just don't care, because for them, having a lifetime court appointee to keep the Supreme Court to the far right for decades to come is more important to them than a short-term electoral loss in the big scheme of things, and being able to thwart a Democratic president and Congress from doing certain things, like, they'll take it right to court. But I do think that the Democrats are going to play their hand this time too, and say, okay, if you're going to get down and dirty and essentially cheat by stealing a seat in 2016 and now being a complete hypocrites and doing this in 2020, I don't think that it will stop the Democrats now when they win, if they win all three branches of government, to say, look, elections have consequences. We have now won everything, so now we have the right to do what we think is best for the country. And I think they will look at all those opportunities, not only to add additional states like DC and Puerto Rico, which, again, Puerto Rico is not necessarily going to be a Democratic bastion, by the way, but they will play into that to be able to have more senators. They will probably look into expanding the court to 13 seats if they needed to, because there is no rule in the Constitution that says they can't. And so that way they would have a firm majority on the court. And yes, you could say this would be the end of democracy, but the problem is that the Republicans have now taken this to a level as the minority rule. As we know, the president didn't win the popular vote, and the Republican majority in the Senate is represented by less people than the minority Democrats in the Senate. So therefore, this is them playing to hold on to their minority rule. So if Democrats have to come back and play that game, I think this time they will, because they'll be like, enough is enough. We let you, get by with a stolen seat in 2016. You try to do the same game again, and now we've got to do something about it. And so I think they will this time. I think that's not an empty threat. But I'm not sure if the other things of holding things back by another impeachment, like I said, you can impeach Donald Trump for multiple crimes that he's done, and he should have been removed from office multiple times over. But I don't know if that's going to play as well in the polls, or doing other things like that to try to attempt to throw things back, or how the government shutdown would affect Democrats, especially with the pandemic going on and being so close to election. So I don't think they're going to go that extreme, because that could turn off some of those moderate voters they need to turn out in November. And I think that this will be enough to turn out enough Democratic votes to see another seat being taken away. And that's going to bring out the Democrats in droves. And so they don't need to have the additional help right now to try to stop that.
Tamra, the possibility here that this doesn't happen before Election Day. So then let's get to the this theory that even if it's just Joe Biden actually wins the election in a way where it is not legislated by the court, it is just like, oh look, he won. And we were talking before about how long that's going to take. I was reading just before the show that Wisconsin is allowing votes to be counted for 6 days afterwards. So if that becomes an important state, that right there will give us a week. But if we look at this and we go like, well, Joe Biden won, he's a president. What do you think public perception would be just in general out there in America if then President Trump, in his lame duck few months, and emphasis on lame and emphasis on duck, that that he's then going to like, force through a Supreme Court justice. Look, if he wins, it really doesn't matter,
Right.
whether he does it tomorrow or he does it in January. If he wins, it really doesn't matter. But so if it's not decided before the election, but then the election itself is clearly decided, just sort of, what do you think? Obviously, the very partisan way that we see the world, sure, but you're going to have a lot of people who are more in the middle who I feel like that's also potentially a really big issue. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like, Chelsea and Scott always give such thorough, thoughtful analysis of things. And I always just go with what the first thought that strikes me in a certain way. And I do feel like this is based on nothing probably that makes any sense. But I feel like if Biden wins, Trump will feel, who the F cares? Screw America. I'm nominating,
Tiger King.
Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Ted
yeah.
Cruz, whose dad tried to kill JFK. By the way, let's all remember that Ted Cruz, this is according to President Trump.
Justice Rush Limbaugh. That's who we're going to, he's going to be so, screw you, America. I don't care. This is what you get. That's what I feel like would happen.
Well, I think that even though she's not a fan of the president, I do think Supreme Court Judge Judy Sheinland actually would be very proud to be appointed in that scenario of, where nobody cares,
Justice Ivanka Trump. That's what we're going to get if Biden. Yeah, I mean, what are the qualifications that a justice has to have? Do you actually have to have a law degree? Is that written anywhere?
Supreme Court Justice Jeanine Pirro, I think, is on the short list.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Supreme Court Justice Greg Gutfeld. So I'm just, it's just like, who does he like on Fox? Those are going to be that's going to be his list. So no, and I don't look. I think that I think that there are several scenarios that create the sort of mayhem that that we're just not prepared for. I do think that this is something that it is very easy for President Trump to try to capitalize on. I think that if it does happen before the election, then it's almost like, well, then what do I need to vote for? People that didn't like him. I think if it's still pending in any way, the most difficult position to be are the never Trumpers, because every point that they make, somebody who is a conservative, somebody who is a Republican, but just doesn't like Trump, it's like, but we can get another Supreme Court justice. I don't care about any of that. People are not going to care about. So people who were going to hold their nose and vote for Joe Biden, people who are going to stay home, they're like, well, fuck, I want a Supreme Court justice. I want another one. I can't believe we get that. So I don't know. I think that that those are sort of the angles, but and look, when I see all the polling and it's like, I was looking at 538 and I'm like, wait, they have like Biden ahead in every state, and I'm like, I don't know if they're looking at it right, And we talk a lot about polls and things and whether or not we can trust them, but I mean, there isn't enough polling that I think accurately reflects people's opinions since Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. I don't know, Chelsea, what do you? Well, let me ask this a different way. This will be more the hypothetical. Would it, if this were the reverse scenario and say that, this happened to Obama, but he had the Senate and he was able to kind of fill something before Election Day, and it looked like, that he wasn't going to get reelected, would you feel, well, good, we got another progressive on the court, or are you able to objectively think that you wouldn't let politics get into this, and you go like, no, it should really be the new president who does this?
Well, in this hypothetical, do we have this situation where Mitch McConnell said, we have this rule that I'm making up that in an election year, we don't nominate new Supreme Court justices, or we don't.
Well, yeah, because even in this hypothetical, Mitch McConnell's full of shit. Yeah, I mean that, there's no scenario where you can be like, oh, I don't know, Mitch McConnell is a really principled guy who, by the way, because of this, I don't know. I mean, Scott, he has to still be polling really well in Kentucky, right? I mean,
Of course.
he's going to win, right?
I don't,
Yeah.
but it drives me bonkers because isn't he like the least popular?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought he was even not popular in his own state. Or
No, but he still has the R next to his name, and he still brings so much clout to that state, being the Senate Majority Leader, that people, again, are going to vote for him. So, yeah.
Yeah, Amy McGrath's numbers are not looking promising. So the only thing we can do is replace him with Elizabeth Warren. By job title, I mean. Not because she's going to go.
And if Republicans were to be the minority, I feel like if there's anybody more deserving of the title minority whip, it would be Mitch McConnell. I don't know. I just feel like he should always be the whip. What were you going to say, Chelsea?
Okay, so I was going to answer your hypothetical. I mean, before Mitch McConnell pulled this rule that stole Merrick Garland's seat, I would say, yes, of course, the moment that there's a vacancy, there should be urgency to fill it. It is not good for the country to have only 8 justices available to be able to answer a question of importance where there could possibly just be an even split, and so they don't really make a decision. And I think that that's the way that it was intended in the Constitution. So the president nominates and the Senate votes. And, for all these conservatives that are so strict constructionists, I mean, you can imagine that was Scalia alive still when Mitch McConnell pulled this crap? Because even Scalia would be like, dude, we're looking in the Constitution and there's nothing about skipping out on voting for a nominee in an election year. That's not in there. And as conservatives, most of us are very big on sticking only to what is in the Constitution. If it's not in the Constitution, it's not a rule. It's not a law. You can't legislate based on that. So this is just, if you could see me now, I've got like my fingers like pressed into my eyeballs. I'm so like intensely like peeved by this. But so I don't know if I answered your question. I would say normally, yes, we should. If this was Obama around still, I would say, yes, we should fill it quickly. However, if we have this fake Mitch McConnell rule, then no.
Yeah. And I was going to add and say the fact is that he already did this. It's not even just a hypothetical rule. Mitch McConnell already did this and prevented a president from being able to have his Supreme Court justice even being, having the consent of the Senate to even have the hearings. That's what made it even worse. It wasn't even like Mitch McConnell attempted to just play the game and say, okay, we'll have them all go and have a hearing and bring him in and go to a vote. And then, they made sure that they didn't vote for him and did the nuclear option then. But the fact was he didn't even allow that. So that's the problem to me, is that the hypocrisy is so ripe that they already basically stole a Supreme Court seat. And now they can act like, oh, no, this is different because of the BS about the 2 different parties and all this crap, which is just, again, like I said from the top, it's horrible to do this to America, because we're the ones that lose out on this when you start really cutting into real democracy here and playing these foolish games. It really debases democracy, and the ones that lose out here are us as a country. And if Mitch McConnell had any kind of principles, he should be completely ashamed. And same with any of these Republicans that are now coming out and saying, oh yes, we're doing it. And he's gotten basically everyone to line up behind him. Even Lamar Alexander, who's retiring, has said he's going to open to having the vote, and they need at least 4 people. So I think it's the losers here are us and democracy, us as a country, and it's shameful to watch it happen. And because of that, that's why I think Democrats then need to really up the ante. And like you said, I don't know where it stopped. Does that mean then the next time Republicans take over, now there's 17 justices there,
Well,
where
yeah,
does
I
it
mean,
end?
there is you certainly run into that.
Yeah.
Well, there are obviously, you've referred to a few of the Republican senators who have, spoken out in favor of it. But we did have, we've had a few that are making it clear that they are not going to vote for this. But not enough, but obviously someone who has not been heard from, even though erroneously attributed to him, is Mitt Romney. And I think that if he knows him not voting for it is going to be the difference maker, there's probably nothing he'll enjoy more than that. I think he would love to be the guy that just goes like, no, you don't get this.
The McCain thumbs down.
Yeah. He's just like, no, I'm not going to help you with that. And then there's this crazy scenario about Martha McSally's seat in Arizona, that because she was appointed, if Mark Kelly wins, he could replace her by the end of November.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm liking the sound of this.
then he would be the one that would be able to vote. So Martha McSally has said like, yes, we definitely need to vote for this.
Yes.
And I don't know. I guess we don't throw around the B word anymore, but let's just say, well, you might not actually get to vote for him, which I think that's one of those like, well, everything has to kind of line up right. But it's a fascinating idea, though, that this guy gets sworn in early, and that could be the difference maker. And also combined with like Mitt Romney.
I'm sorry, he's a Democrat.
Yeah. He's a Democrat.
Yes.
And because Martha McSally was appointed after losing her race, she was then appointed. Right. She would be replaced before January.
Okay.
Right.
So the thinking is that as basically by Thanksgiving, if the voting is counted and all of that goes well. So yeah, he would not vote to confirm this, any nominations. So
correct.
You get into all of these scenarios, Tamara, it's almost like the MLB trading deadline. It's like, well, if they can really just get one big bat and maybe a closer, I think they really have a chance.
Finally, something that I understand this episode. Most of this has gone entirely over my head.
Right, exactly. So, but that's really what it is that you have Democrats and some people in the media that are basically playing fantasy baseball and trying to fill out a roster of Republicans who would vote against this.
And then it depends when it is too. Like you said, if they do it after the election and nobody cares anymore, like let's say Susan Collins doesn't, it has lost her reelection bid, and then maybe she's like, oh, the hell with it. Like I like Amy or whoever he ends up appointing as a woman.
Yeah, that's true.
Supreme Court, which she said. So now you have the other factors, and if it's after the election and some of these folks have lost, maybe they're not going to care. But on the other hand, maybe if Cory Gardner or other people have lost that have said they are going to vote for him, at that point, don't. So you could go on forever trying to figure it out before the election and after, how some Republicans may vote or not vote with their conscience or not. It's fascinating, but also drive you crazy. But the bottom line is we're setting ourselves up for a really bad, unprecedented time on top of an election that was already going to be quite unprecedented. So I would just say we need to buckle up, because it's going to be a crazy ride for the next couple months. We already thought 2020 was crazy enough. I mean, I don't think we've even seen the beginning of how crazy it really could be the next couple months. Yep. Sadly.
Yeah. I'm not. I don't think I've been prepared for most of this year. I'm definitely not prepared for what happens next. But what I do know is that the next time we're on the air, it'll be after next Tuesday's debate. Now, Scott, you're actually traveling for the debate, right?
Yes. Yeah. I will be in Florida. So I will also be curious to see, and I will definitely let you guys know how many Trump signs, and if I see any more Biden signs, because I'm going to actually quite a Republican area in Southwest Florida. In years past, you really see a very heavy Republican presence for local candidates and for president and governor when it's governor's races and Senate. So I'll be curious to see if I see an uptick or not in Biden-Harris signs or less Trump voters or supporters. So I'll definitely let you guys know too when I'm down there to see how it's kind of looking down there.
Tamara,
Yeah.
in your travels, were there was there like a giant MAGA hat on the Grand Canyon?
No,
Like at the
no.
top of the Grand,
I
no?
have seen a ton of campaign signs, but all for candidates I didn't know who any of them were, and I didn't bother to Google which side they were on. So, but I haven't seen any Trump or Biden
But
signs.
no presidential
Mm-mm.
campaign signs. Well, they must not be spending any money in there. And so is it, with these people that you're with, you just don't talk politics at all? I
I'm
mean,
not allowed to.
yeah,
Oh, Jesus.
yeah. Well, so do they have conversations that you excuse yourself from, or?
Um, no, there just isn't those kinds of conversations. But I did have a climate change conversation. But I mean, you guys know how these types of things go. It never makes sense.
I too will be with a lot of Republican people next week, and most of them will be pretty good about not, and actually very big Trump supporters, and they're from upstate New York, which you forget, and they come down to Florida. You know, upstate New York is very conservative and rural and Republican, but they've always been very good, and we get along because we just do not even go there and talk politics. So that's at least a good thing.
Oh
But I'm right
yeah.
there with you. We're like,
No, if New
no,
York, if New York,
no
yeah, if New
political zone.
York ever it became one of those states that awarded electoral votes by congressional district, there actually wouldn't be that many blue electoral votes from there. Yeah, no. I mean, look, I always think it's interesting, and I mean, we talked about this in recent weeks, that the way that people on the left feel the disaster they feel 4 more years of President Trump are. I know plenty of people who have a lot of reasons that they don't like Trump, but the idea of Joe Biden being president, it's him in particular is there's a group of people that are like, you know, he doesn't do himself any favors by not making himself available to the press. The other day, it was just a couple days ago, he did what they call he called a lid at 8:30 in the morning, so the rest of the day you couldn't talk to him. He wasn't available for anything, and that is not the kind of thing that what are we, God, 6 weeks out of the, I can't believe that, a week away from the debate, and he's just he's not talking to people. I don't know. I think that I can't think of a debate that has had this much potential to ruin someone than Joe Biden, because even Trump going into the first debate with Hillary, you were like, yeah, but I mean, he's on TV all the time. He kind of knows how to do that stuff. And even though it didn't particularly go his way, I don't know. I mean, Scott, can you think of anybody, or any of you, can you think of somebody where, like, heading into the first debate, you were like, oh, this guy really has to be careful to not implode here?
Bloomberg?
No, I mean presidential debate, but Bloomberg, yeah, no, because Bloomberg lived up to every expectation. I mean, it's like all those tragic videos of rockets that explode on the launch pad before they ever even take off. That was the Bloomberg campaign. It's a montage of that. I don't know. I mean, Scott, is there anybody that you can even compare it to that in our lifetime, anybody that you can think of? Because I was trying to think about this earlier. I mean, you have people who maybe weren't great on television. You had in '92 in the vice presidential debate, you had James Stockdale, who, people basically, Phil Hartman on Saturday Night Live just turned into, who am I? What am I doing here? But I don't know. I can't think of anything that compares to the danger that putting Joe Biden on television live will be.
Look, I mean, Joe Biden, that's part of, and he's always been this way. It's just, he says things off the cuff, and then he says things are like, oh crap. But at the same time, I don't think it's any different when you're talking about Donald Trump, who's not a great debater by any stretch, and will just deflect and everything anyways. And it doesn't matter because, look, he lost basically every debate last time, and he still won the presidency. So I think that people that are putting too much into the debates as being major game changers, yes, that's the only thing, is that Biden will say something off the cuff that'll be inappropriate or whatever, which he's done in the past. But I do believe, much like his speech, that he did for the convention, that he's going to be is prepared as he can to be able to come back on some of these things that Trump is going to do. So I'm just concerned. I mean, I know there were things in the past, like, going back to Ronald Reagan debating Walter Mondale, and there was talk about, Ronald Reagan being too old. And when you had Bill Clinton with Bob Dole in '96, and you were thinking, well, what's Bob Dole going to say maybe? And, you've had some of that in the past, but here we have two men who are basically the same age, and both are not great debaters by any stretch. So I don't think there's as much that I'm as worried about more than Joe Biden saying just something off the cuff, which he's always been known for, and just saying something that's going to be inappropriate. That's the only concern I have. I don't think there's anything about him not being prepared or being capable in any way compared to Donald Trump, that Donald Trump's going to be any better at that. So,
and for sure, he's going to say 200 million people have died.
But those are the only kind of candidates I can think of.
I'm sorry, what was that, Chelsea?
Yeah.
I'm like, we should already be prepared. He's going to say 200 million people have died of coronavirus. Like,
right.
Okay, yes, he's going to say something.
Which, by the way, maybe this is Joe Biden from the future, and he forgets that he shouldn't actually spoil that for us. Unfortunately, the 200 million people died. There's going to be stuff like that. But Tamara, what I was going to ask you is, obviously, President Trump, it is very easy to sort of find your way to some little corner of his brain and just poke it in the right way, where you could really throw him for the entire night if you pick on the one thing that he wasn't expecting. Is there anything that comes to mind? I don't know if...
Well, I would think that if similar to the town hall, like if there was a moderator that might actually fact check him on the spot, I think that we would see him, throw his mic and walk off stage or something like that. Like, I could see something like that. Other than that, is there something that Biden would nudge? I don't know too much that I'd have to think about that of something that Biden himself would say that could make Trump lose it.
I mean, clearly somebody on Biden's team would have given him that on like a little sticky pad because, they would have thought of it for him. But, you do make a good point. I mean, people still talk about Candy Crowley fact-checking Mitt Romney in that debate in 2012. And I think that, Chris Wallace doesn't think his job is to fact-check. But, depending on – I also don't think he's going to let – either of them go unchallenged when they say things like that. I mean, the sorts of things that President Trump can get away with at his, his town halls and rallies and things, I think that if you're able to get him to a state where he does storm off, that is a huge victory for, for Joe Biden, for television viewership, and for people who just like chaos, because then it's like Biden's like, well, I'm still here, Chris. If you want to talk a little bit longer, you can go ahead and take a commercial break, but I'll be right here. We'll talk about anything you want. You want to bring Corn Pop out? We'll talk about him too. I don't even care. I'm not even embarrassed anymore. But I think that at least not in the first debate. I can't imagine President Trump storming off. Maybe it builds up over the three debates, and then at that point, Chelsea, is there anything that you think would be worth just trying to annoy President Trump? Something that would actually make him, take off his mic and storm off the set.
I mean, it's possible that if Biden harped on what Trump said about military and vets, because Trump clearly cared about that. He came out with a statement to deny that he had ever disparaged any members of the military. But clearly that got under his skin. Clearly that made a difference with people who are who respect the military. So that may be one area that if he was poked enough at, he would get perhaps pissed enough that'd be a great moment. I can already visualize it, just like ripping out the mic and throwing it on the ground. And
Yeah, I mean, I actually hadn't thought of that, but I think you're right. That is definitely an issue
I
that
could also
he's very
see,
emotional about, and I mean, to the extent that he had Melania speak out for him, and I mean, he only gets 2 of those a year, and he used them both in the same week. He got her to speak at the RNC, and then also she had to stand up for him. Sorry, what were you going to say, Tamara?
I could also see him damaging himself by saying something horrible to Biden about his son, who Bo, or something that is just so like sort of cruel about in Biden's personal tragedy. I could see that something that Trump does.
Scott, how valuable do you think it would be if, and you do this for both of them, if you cut the candidate's mic when the other one is speaking? So Biden can't jump in, and especially Trump can't jump in. I feel like Trump in particular would find that infuriating. Do you think that do you think that would be effective? Because Trump's whole kind of MO is basically, to lean in fake news. Like that's kind of his thing, is to speak, just kind of drop comments, do a little drive-by like that.
Oh, no, absolutely. Because I remember, I don't know if it was the first debate or I think it was the first debate last time with Hillary, when he complained that they were doing something with his mic and his mic wasn't working right. So that he will do everything he can to deflect and blame if things don't go well for him. And of course, if the mic was cut, he would say that was unfair. And then, that Biden was able to still speak and it wasn't cut the same way. He would do all that. But yes, that would absolutely infuriate him. But I think it would be a great idea when you consider that you won't necessarily have an audience. So already you're going to move a little bit faster along with things without having to have the constant applause and the interruptions. But then if you're able to cut a mic, then you're really going to be able to keep things to time and be able to move things along and get to hopefully all the topics you want to. So yeah, I think it would be for both to be able to have that ability to not be cut off. But that, again, I think that's also going to be a challenge, not just for Donald Trump, but for Biden. And that's what makes the debate so difficult. It's not even that. It's the body language. It's the entire time they have to remember they're on camera. So that's the other thing that I think Joe Biden's going to be good with that Trump won't, is being able to maintain that composure and that body language. And that can affect people a lot of ways. Remember, George H.W. Bush was like looking at his watch, and we've had that with Al Gore looking bored or just exasperated when George W. Bush was making his comments and everything in 2000. So the other thing that we're have to watch for is how are they going to compose themselves, and how are they going to be able to handle the fact when they are not the ones speaking, especially Biden being able to listen to Donald Trump carry on about his lies and hypocrisy and other things, and vice versa with Donald Trump, who has no patience, to be able to compose himself with his body language. And I think that's going to be a bigger challenge almost for both of these candidates to do. And I think Joe Biden has better experience and practice with that, but it is going to be a challenge. And that's almost going to be more than even the interruptions or the lies or what they say, as long as it's not too off the cuff, is body language. And that's a very important part of these debates that you don't normally have in other scenarios. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how this pans out next week.
Well, also in defense of Al Gore, even he couldn't be interested in listening to Al Gore speak for that long. So that's why he was so bored. I mean, I think that we can't really hold that against him. But, we were talking about body language. Of course, it made me think of the vice presidential debate in 2012, which was Biden and Paul Ryan. And I think that basically, Biden won that on style points by like smirking and shaking his head, and just he had that Joker grin on his face the whole time. So I do wonder if we're going to get some of that, and I don't know. I think that there's I think there's even money that one of the two of them challenges the other one to a fight, and in all honesty, I'm not sure which one it is. I think it's even money for which
or push-up fight. Or
well, I've heard Joe say that before. Like, come on, let's do a push-up challenge.
Do push-ups.
Yeah. Which I think that would actually be like challenging Donald Trump to a push-up contest, I think would actually draw the attention of the Secret Service, because you're basically threatening his life by saying that he should do push-ups.
Well, there's a remarkable correlation between your ability to stand up from a seated position on the floor to how much longer you have to live. So if we told them to both sit down on the floor and then watch them both try and get up, that could tell us a lot.
Wow.
Well, I don't know. I always feel like if you can hold a glass of water and actually drink it, you must be doing all right. But
one hand.
I get up very awkwardly though when I'm sitting on the floor, so I don't know what that's.
Well, Scott, I guess you shouldn't be president, which is too bad because I would have voted for you. This is a lot of speculation for the first debate, which will be next Tuesday night. It'll be, what's that? That's the 29th of September. And we'll be here to talk about it after the fact. Chelsea, we always hope you're able to be with us, but we realize that you might not. So I did want to give you a moment just in case, we don't get to talk again before the election, or we only talk a couple of times. Just any overall thoughts before we wrap things up for the evening?
I think that if there is a silver lining to the timing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing, is a reignition of some passion about what we really care about and stand for. And that that may very well give Biden the boost of passion that his campaign lacks, and might make a difference to the election and the future of our country. That's all I got at the moment.
Right. Tamra, are you going to recommend that the ladies at the house watch this show when it's posted Tuesday morning? Do you think that they would enjoy it?
Right. They're listening to the whole thing.
Hi, gals. Good to see you.
No, I'm just hoping that they don't vote.
They might forget. Yeah. I mean, this is not even a disparagement on these ladies that I don't know. I mean,
wait, I would really want to know, okay, so if they got to get no abortion, but then they had to go back to they couldn't sign their own mortgage, couldn't vote,
I don't think they're aware of that.
Oh God, ignorance is painful for me. Other people's ignorance is painful for me.
I know, that's why you can't even look at me right now, Chelsea. All right, Scott, you didn't have to laugh that hard. But what you should tell those ladies, Tamra, and the same thing you should tell all of us, is where they can follow you on TikTok.
Hey, Tamra, hey. Please follow,
Hey,
check it out.
Where can people find you?
Who was that, for Scott?
It was for Scott. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was for Chelsea.
I said, hey, Scott, hey.
Whoops, sorry. You can find me on Twitter at sman80, SMAN80, and you know that I'm calling out Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump and all those hypocritical fools right now. So you can enjoy that on Twitter.
And Chelsea, tell people where they can find you, and tell them what the title is of your book and where they can find that.
Oh, well, that's very sweet of you. I mean, I wish I could say, you can find me on Twitter at Chelsea Galicia, which, that is my handle. But these days I am not there very often. So if you have some patience with me as I get back to you. But yes, my book, I haven't even talked about it in a whole week. And so now I couldn't even remember the name of the book. It's called Save Yourself. Develop the financial fitness to spend in alignment with your values, not ego. You see there what I did with the word save. Yeah. A hopefully great personal finance book that you will enjoy and will make a tremendous difference with your money, which is available on Amazon.
And it's great. And I have a copy and I can concur. And I've asked for it as someone who's interested in taking care of my own budgeting and financing. It was a good read. So it's easy for anyone to be able to read it. So thank you for doing that.
Chelsea, I would encourage you to get on TikTok for that, for financial fitness reasons, promoting that. I could see you getting a following really fast.
Oof. I mean, I almost thought TikTok wasn't even going to be a thing as of
I
late.
know until today. But the thing
Right.
is, you can. I mean, it's so much easier to monetize than the other social media handles. That's why I'm putting the efforts into it, and I'm almost at 10,000 followers, which I can. That means I can then monetize
Wait,
my account.
hello. I don't think I realized that. All right.
Yeah, look at you.
All right, I'm going to go look at TikTok tonight.
Woo.
I'm going to try and figure it out. But if you want to follow me on old social media, I believe I've made the joke too many times, but you can find me the same place. You can find me Christian DMZ. That is Twitter. That is Instagram. It might as well be MySpace. It might as well be Friendster. You can find it everywhere. It actually was Snapchat for like a second, but I never actually did anything with it. I like had an account and then I was like, I just didn't understand it. But if you're enjoying this show, you should subscribe to this channel, the Blackcast YouTube channel, for this show and others like it. We've had a couple of people who want to know when the audio version will be posted. Just as soon as enough people seem to really want it. So far, we've got 2. Generally speaking, people seem to be okay with the YouTube version, even if they just listen to it on their phone. But if enough people really want it, let us know. You can tweet at Trump Report ABTV if you'd like to do that. But we will be back next Tuesday. My guess is 9 p.m. Pacific. That is midnight Eastern. I know Chelsea may or may not be able to be there, and I know, Scott, you might have to do a drive-by because you'll be deep in Florida, and that's definitely like wearing the opposing team's jersey at the opposing team's jersey at the playoff game, but
Right.
You'll be there all the same. So thank you to Tamra Brown, Scott Moore, and of course Chelsea Galicia. I'm Christian Bladt, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.